glass slab is placed over a piece of paper on which Vibgyor is printed with each letter into its corresponding colors. Glass slab is placed over a piece of paper on which Vibgyor is printed with each letter into its corresponding colors. So you can see I have drawn a figure wherein I have put what you can see Vibgyor in respective colors. So V is for violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red. Now the question is, will the image of all the letters be in the same place? Obviously that yes, once you see these letters from somewhere outside here, then these letters will look raised. The question is, will they be raised to the same level? The answer is no. Answer is, this is closed question, so the answer directly will be no in it. Right. Then you have to, then the next second part of the question is the letter of which color will appear the raised the maximum. So we know that, and which will be the minimum, and explain your answer. See, we know that the violet light, the color violet has the lowest wavelength, so it bends the most. The one which bends the most will be highly refracted. If it is highly refracted, means it has the highest refractive index. And we know that the apparent depth of any object depends upon the refractive index. And what is the formula? Apparent depth is equal to we know the formula, that is apparent depth is equal to real depth upon refractive index, or we can say refractive index. Now violet has the highest bending power because it has the smallest wavelength, lowest speeds, it will bend the most, it will have the highest refractive index, and highest refractive index, the real depth is the same. So apparent depth, see, if real depth is 10, refractive index is 2, then what is the apparent depth? 10 upon 2, 5. Got it? Now if the refractive index is 4 or say 2.5, so 10 divided by 2.5, that will give you 4. So has this apparent depth what? Reduced in it? Right. When the refractive index is more, in this case is refractive index more, the apparent depth decreases. So when the refractive index violet is more than say the indigo, then yes, it will be, the apparent depth will be less in this case here. See, this is the apparent depth 4, apparent depth 5. Fine. So the apparent depth depends upon the refractive index. In case of red, if the refractive index of red is the least, say for example 1.25, in that case it will give you how much? The apparent depth will be around 8. Okay, so it depends upon the apparent it depends upon the refractive index. Violet has got the smallest wavelength, so it has got the lowest velocity of light, and therefore it has the highest refractive index, and therefore it will have the lowest apparent depth, right? Because it is more, the apparent depth will be less. Fine. Red has got the highest biggest wavelength, highest velocity of all these colors, so it will have the apparent depth less in it. Is it clear? Apparent depth will be less, it will bend the least. So the which one will show you the biggest shift? The violet will show you the biggest shift, red will show you the less shift. So for that, yes, I have drawn a figure here. You can see the one which bends the most, the refractive index is more, it will be looked raised more. Red has got the highest velocity, it has less refractive index, it will bend the least. If bend the least, then the apparent will be, see, less height. Apparent here you can see is the bend the least, so the apparent will have less, okay, bigger height, sorry, this apparent will be more in it. Is it clear? And this has the apparent less in it. You can see this is, for example, let's say the violet has got the refractive index 4, just taking an example, it's not the actual value. So 10 divided by 4 will be how much? 2.5. So what is the apparent depth? Only 2.5. And the other one is there. So this has got more violet, then indigo has what, say the refractive index less. This has got less, and this is why the most, okay, the letter which will appear to the raised most will be violet, then indigo, then blue, then green, then yellow, then orange, and then the last one red. The only reason you should remember, apparent depth depends upon the real depth upon the refractive index, and the refractive index of violet is the maximum. Refractive index of violet, or we can say mu of violet color, is much more, or is the maximum as compared to refractive index of red. So this is why it will have the right, the apparent depth will be less in it. Okay, fine. So this is what the question was, and the figure I think is enough for you to understand how will it, you will be able to answer it and understand this.